Girls who want to ask any particular question to Frank, that's absolutely marvellous, but so that opportunity will come. We left the first half with you leaving Newcastle for either Doncaster or Hartlepool, and thankfully it turned out to be Nottingham Forest. Now, that was the beginning of a most incredible experience for you, with respect probably late in your career. And everything went beautifully well, and you were part of the rise of Cloughie and of Nottingham Forest, because when you joined them, they were in the second division, Frank, weren't they?
Yeah, and they were very ordinary second division team. Brian had just joined them in the January, so I hadn't really had much time to affect them at all. The club had no money to spend, so we were very ordinary. And the first year, we finished mid-table in the second division, really. And I was a bit disappointed with Brian, actually. He wasn't what I expected. And I spoke to John McGovern and John O'Hare about this, and they felt that he was missing Peter Taylor. Peter Taylor hadn't come with him. Peter Taylor stayed at Brighton. And they felt that he was missing Peter. And, anyway, subsequently Peter joined him the following close season, and it did seem to make a big difference. Peter Taylor was like a character, you know.
So was Cloughie.
Yeah, but in a different way.
Yeah.
Peter Taylor was not a very nice man. Like, he was a bully. He was obsessed with money, but he was funny. He was a comedian. He made Brian laugh. Like, that's what he said. That's why he had him. But he was also a very good judge of a player, Peter. And after the first season, that next season, the season we got promoted, we scraped up really. The last game of the season, and how Cloughie worked this, I do not know. It could not be done today. We finished our season 6 days before anybody else.
Yes. We were abroad, weren't we?
No, well, so when the last game was played on the last Saturday of the season, we were on an aeroplane going to Tynemouth, New York, for a piss up at the end of the season. And I forget exactly how it was, but I think Bolton were playing Wolves, and Wolves were already up. Bolton just needed to draw, and they would go up in third place, and we wouldn't go up. And we were on the plane, and we get off the plane at New York, and the chairman, nice man, rang his wife and said, "What was the Bolton score?" She said, "You've been promoted. Bolton have lost." That's how we found out on the tarmac at Palmer Airport. And I can't remember much about the next week. You know, and that was it, and it just went on from there. I mean, nobody dreamt for a minute, certainly the players didn't, that we would go and win the league the following season.
I mean, everybody, Clough is a fascination to everybody, whether it's a fan, whether it's modern day managers, whether it's the press, whether it's television. He's absolutely a fascination to everyone. I mean, I worked with him a few times when he came up here, and we did these sort of things throughout the Northeast, and it was an eye-opener. But you actually saw him day in, day out, etc., down at Forest. How much of a one-off was he? How much was off the cuff, and how much was cleverly planned? I'm thinking, for example, didn't you go and play at Celtic and he stopped you off to have a pint on the way to the game?
I wasn't there then. I'd gone then.
He did that?
He did do that, yeah.
Yeah.
He was a one-off, and he was an incredibly charismatic man. When he was on television, he had this great thing, and I don't know whether it's not a secret, but a lot of people don't do it. It's like, if you're interviewing me on television and the camera's there, when I answer you, Cloughie would be looking at the camera. He wouldn't be looking at you.
Wouldn't know. He'd look at the camera.
I should be looking at the audience when I'm answering you, but I'm not as good as Cliff. He would be looking straight into the camera. Like when we had that 3-3 draw with Cologne, he looked into the camera and he said, if anybody thinks silly enough to think that we're out, I'm fucking telling them we're not.
And he's directing the
Right
line.
into the camera.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he had this amazing charisma, and he was a great man manager. As I said before, man management is about getting the best somehow, whatever way you want to do it, getting the best out of the people who are working for him. And he was just brilliant.
And you know, some of the outrageous and quotes things he did was for deliberate effect, and was it? And not off the cuff, but he knew it would have an effect.
A lot of them were deliberate. Him and Peter Taylor hardly ever came to training. Very rarely. They just left it to Jimmy Gordon, and all we did was do a warm-up, get warmed up, and play five-a-side. But it was always played with an intensity. It wasn't people weren't mucking about like that. But they never came. And you would think, well, what are they doing all day like that? Well, what they were doing was scheming. The two of them.
Yeah.
Scheming together. How can we get an effect? How can we get him to do better? How can we buy somebody else? How can we get a referee on our side? Like, you know? Cluffy was brilliant with referees. Referees loved him because they never got any aggravation from us. Because we knew if we did, we'd be in trouble with him. We were obsessed about that. Leave the referees alone.
He had a terrific disciplinary record with referees, didn't he?
And what they used to do, him and Pete, clever bastards. You know, there's loads of referee societies all over the country, local referee societies, mainly for grassroots referees, but the top referees are usually they're members of these
Of course, yeah.
various.
Yeah.
And in those days, they used to get the list of who was going to referee a game about 3 months in advance. And if there was a referee whose refereeing association was going to come and referee quite soon, one of them would volunteer to go and do a talk for them at the referee society. And it got around, and they always invited the referee into their office for a drink before the game, like when at home, you know. He couldn't do it. And he had the meeting out of his hands.
Yeah.
But he did insist we never ever backchat the referee. Ever.
No.
Fantastic. So it was all cleverly thought out. Like Peter Shilton, when he was at Stoke City, everybody in football knew he was one of the best goalkeepers in the world. There's no argument about that. It didn't have to be a football genius.
He holds England record today, didn't he?
Nobody in football had the courage to pay £350,000. £350,000
Yeah.
for a fucking goalkeeper. You must be joking.
Cluffy did.
Those two did.
Yeah.
Those two did. At a club that didn't have a lot of money. Those two did. And he was fantastic. I would say, at that time, I hadn't seen all the goalkeepers in the world, arguably the best goalkeeper in the world. But they were the only ones brave enough to pay £350,000.
Yeah. I mean, people don't realise that, they realise what Nottingham Forest did, didn't they? But they keep thinking, well, it was quite amazing. It was a team of honest men, whether it was John McGovern, whoever you said, blah, blah, blah. But it was a team of stars as well. When you think about winning Europe and you think about there's Trevor Francis, there's Shilton, there's Robertson, who must be the most unfit looking winger who was so effective it was untrue. There were stars in that.
The best ever player at Nottingham Forest, the best player ever beat.
Was Robertson.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's me saying. I haven't seen them all, but the only one close to him was Story Moore. And they're both very good friends, and they both get embarrassed when people talk about it. But John Robertson was a fantastic player.
In fact, he looked unfit. Was he unfit?
No, he wasn't unfit. He wasn't a great athlete. But that's it. He's a classic example of man management. John was a schoolboy international, Scottish Schoolboy International, so he had a talent, and he was a central midfield player who looked unfit, who, when Clough came to the club, was going nowhere really, meandering about. When I first went there, I didn't speak to him for months. I thought he was a tramp. Honestly. He dressed like a fucking tramp. He smoked, him and his mate Jimmy McCann. Were always late for training and could get off it whenever they could. I wouldn't have anything to do with a pair of them. And anyway, when Peter came, the first season Peter was with us, pre-season, Clough used to take us to a place called Augsburg, just outside of Munich, pre-season. And we'd play 2 or 3 games against local 3rd division teams.
Yeah.
Get fit really. Anyway, first day out there, we all sat in a circle, and Pete's just joined the club. And Pete comes with Cloughie down to him and stand, and he points at Rob and he said, "You, fuck off, back to the hotel. I'll see you afterwards." And Rob was, "What? Get back to the hotel, I'll see you afterwards." Robbo goes back to the hotel, he's absolutely shitting himself. We go back to Prairie, and Pete gets laced into him. "You can play, son, you, but you're a disgrace. You're a disgrace to your profession, you're a disgrace to yourself." Really gave it to him, man. And John's on the floor. And Cloughie comes in and says, "But you know what, son? You know why we're telling you this? We think you can play."
Yeah.
And Robbo says, from that day on, it was like
The light come on.
seeing the light. Because they're in the plan now.
Yes, of course, of course.
You know, the rest was just history. Just became a great, great player.
So was his style of management, Frank, was it that the players loved him, the players feared him, the players respected him, or was it all that?
That's the word.
Respect.
I don't think we feared him. No, certainly I wouldn't call him lovable. But not fear, you know. You didn't want to be on the wrong side of him, but you didn't want to be on the wrong side of any manager, really. But respect for him, really. And it was, I mean, him and I were perfect for each other. Because by that time in my life, I was a low-maintenance player. I never caused him a problem. I was just always ready when I was called on, and he never, you know. So him and I had a, you understood. Like when I first signed, he said, "By the way," he said, "I'm not going to make you captain, you know." I said, "All right, I'm not worried about that, man." He said, "I've got Sammy Chapman, who I don't like very much, but I'm eventually going to make John McGovern captain, but I know him." So I just want you to come and play and be who you are. And just being who you are and how you are will be like being a captain without having the armband and having the responsibility. Because when I look back at Newcastle, I don't really want to blame Westwood in the direction. I'd become a nuisance for them at the club. But if you remember, I was a captain when Bob left.
You were captain.
Bob went to Sunderland, and I was captain, and I was fighting everybody's battles. Kids who'd been badly treated, players who'd been badly treated. I thought I had to fight all the battles, and it was, I've become a nuisance. So that probably contributed to me getting kicked out. So he said, "I don't want you to do any of that." And I had the most wonderful 4 years because of that.
Yes.
I just played.
Yes.
He kept bringing all these good players in. And when he left me out, he used to go and see him and say, "Brian, why am I not playing?" He said, "Well, you fuck off." I said, "I'm putting all these good players around and having to become successful. Just relax and enjoy yourself." And incredible.
May 1979, European Cup final. You were playing Malmo.
Yeah.
The game was won by Trevor Francis' goal. You were playing, if I recall, not left back, but left side.
No, left back. You're wrong there.
You didn't play with Larry Lloyd.
Yes.
But yes, but not alongside.
No. No, the team was Shilton, Anderson, Lloyd, Burns, Clark, Francis, McGovern, Bowyer, Robertson, Woodcock, and Francis. Woodcock and Burns.
Burrows, yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
There's a great story there. This is typical of club. Leading up to the cup final, 3 of us had been injured. Me, Archie Gemmell, Scottish international, Martin O'Neill, Irish international. We'd all had minor injuries. So, the morning of the game, and we're all looking at each other and thinking, now who's going to play here? Now we knew Trevor was going to play, because Trevor Francis made his debut in Europe in that game, because it had been signed late, so he couldn't play in any other game. He was always going to play. And he was going to play wide on the right. So that meant that the 3 of us were competing for one spot in the team. He could play Archie Gemmell in midfield, and Ian Boyer as a left back, because Ian was pretty good deputy as a left back. Or he could play Martin in there, and Ian Boyer as a left back. Or he could play me, and Ian Boyer in midfield. We don't know.
What's he going to do?
The morning of the game, we don't know. We have a little gentle training session, and we're all kind of looking at each other. And he walked around and he said, "Are you fit?" "Yes, boss." He says to Archie, "Are you fit?" "Yes, boss." And he says to Martin, "Are you fit?" "Yes, of course, boss." So we've all declared ourselves fit. And I get the shout. Now that's that. Fucking Scottish international, Irish international, and me. And I play. Archie is absolutely devastated, and I mean like devastated. He never played another game before us.
That was it.
Martin was absolutely gutted as well, but we got over it. And I was just happy, relieved I was playing, really. And about a year, quite a while after, when I sort of plucked up the courage to ask him why he'd done it, he said, "Well," he said, "of the 3 of you, I thought you were the least one to tell me a fucking lie."
So you were fit,
And
you
I thought,
thought?
"Is that a compliment?" But it was, so, and after the game, all the lads, the wives had gone home, staying at a different hotel. But Pam couldn't go because she just had Nicky. She was breastfeeding, and Nicky was only a few months old, so she couldn't go. So all the lads had gone off, because Cloughie and Taylor were nightmares, you know. They never celebrated anything.
Really?
Never celebrated. The night we won the League Cup for the first time, we came back home on the coach. Cloughie went home, took the cup home with him, stuck it on his fucking television, had a fish and chip supper at home. We all just went off on our own way in town. They never celebrated, they weren't like that. So they had nothing arranged. So all the lads whose wives were there shot off to this other hotel to celebrate with them. So I left at the team hotel with Archie,
Right.
who was as sick as a pig, Chris Woods, the reserve team, the young goalkeeper.
Yeah, yeah.
Who's never fucking bought a drink in his life. And Tony Waddington. Remember Tony Waddington, the Stoke manager?
Oh, yes,
Well,
yes.
by this time, Tony was virtually an alcoholic. But Cloughie had invited him as his guest.
Right.
So Tony was pissed before we sat down to dinner. So there's the 4 of us that's celebrating winning the European Cup. A real thrilling.
What a good night, Frank. But yeah, a lot I mean, there wasn't a personality bigger than Cloughie, but there was a lot of personalities around the game in those days. One of them, quite obviously, George Best. You must have, and I know you did, come across George a few times.
I did, yes. On the pitch, we were okay. I came out even with him quite a lot of the time. I think only once did he really get the better of him. Might have been a 6-2 once at Old Trafford. But most of the games I was okay. I could cope with it. But he did me up much better off the pitch one night. We played at Newcastle. We played a game in London on a Saturday night. And we had another game on the Tuesday in the south, so we stayed down. And Joe said, "Listen, you can all go out and have after the game. I think we must have won. You can go out and have it if you want to have a night out, like, you know." So me and Willie Macfall, Irish, as you know, with a big pile of besties, played in the Irish team with him. He said, let's go to Stringfellas with Bessie. Get in there with Bessie. Yeah, I'm up for that, like, so off we go. So we get in, and there's Bessie. Sat at his table, right opposite the ladies' toilet door, like, you know, his own table. So we sit down and we're having a drink with George. And, yeah, it's good this way. And right out of the blue, fucking hell, Miss World comes walking out of the ladies' toilet. Comes walking out, Mary Slav, Miss World.
Oh yeah, yeah.
She comes walking across, like, and she's looking at me, like, looking right at me, and I'm thinking, fuck it. I've cracked it here, like that. And she's coming right up to me, and I'm thinking, like, fuck it, got you tonight, Bessie, like. And she said, would you like to dance? I said, I'd love to. She said, well, fuck off on the dance floor so I can sit next to George.
And we know what happened with George and Mary, like, but there you go. Personalities from those days, and they were abounding. Anybody else that sticks out in particular?
Well, normally people say who was the best player I've ever played against.
Yeah.
And I can say, I can drop a great name out here, and I can say I played against Pele.
You can't get a better name than that. You can't. For me, still the best player in the world.
Obviously, it's in the news for sad things now, like, but we, in 71, I think it was, Angie might put me right, I think it was 71, we went to the Far East on an end of season tour.
Ah, yes.
And we played 2 games in Bangkok. We were pissed down every day. And we beat their national team 5-0 twice. And John Tudor scored about 6, because they were all midgets.
Right.
All the Thai players were about,
in the air,
5'2", like, you know.
You'd be dynamite in the air.
Yeah, it was dynamite. And Mar wasn't there. I think Mar was playing for England. Then we went to Iran, which was probably the worst place I've ever been to in my life. And then we went to Hong Kong. And in Hong Kong, we were fixed up to play a friendly against Santos, which is Pele's club side in Brazil, who were out there at the same time as us. And Santos made it a habit of, whenever their season finished, they went all over the world playing friendlies, trying to cash in on Pele.
Of course.
Edu and players like that. So we played them in Happy Valley. And a fantastic experience. They beat us 4-2. He scored 3, came off after an hour. Done enough, by lads.
Yeah, I'm on you, eh?
And he was magnificent. Great player.
Special time.
When you tackled him, it was like tackling a brick shit out. It was hard as nails, really hard as nails. I've got a great picture at home where it showed me actually getting a tackle in him. Probably the only time in the game I got near to him.
So you bribed the photographer?
Somebody asked me the other day and said, is there a ball in the picture? I can't remember. But he was outstanding.
Yeah.
But we found out after the game he got £10,000 himself for playing in it, and we got £1,000 between 20 of us. That was about right, to be fair. He was fantastic.
But Santos just used him to peddle themselves around the world. And he was that good. He was that good, Frank, wasn't he? He was that good. When we think of you going into management at the end of football, etc., the most staggering thing is the long relationship you have had with Nottingham Forest, having gone down there because of Cloughie being a North East lad, known the North East scene, signing you, etc., etc. But since then, you've done everything with them. You've been a player with them, you've been manager of them, you've been chairman, you've been ambassador, you've held a position with the club from you first going down there at 30 or whatever it was, for the rest of your life. It's been quite, I don't think anybody will have ever done that with a single club and held all those positions for them.
Yeah, well, I mean, sometimes it's been about being in the right place at the right time. I mean, the manager's job is a bit of a story there, really. I was managing Leyton Orient, not a lot of people know that.
Yeah.
And I'd been there a long time. I mean, it was great. I really enjoyed it, but Christ, it was hard. Every month we could be going out of business, you know. It was really difficult. And I managed to keep the club surviving. And then we found we got a chairman who was absolutely wonderful. He came in to see me, and I had enough, like scrimping and saving. It gets to you eventually. I was going to leave. And he said, I want you to stay. I want you to run the club for me and run the team. And I said, well, what do you want to do with it, lad? You know, the last couple of chairmen we've had have been a bit of a waste of time, man. Well, I think we're in the 4th division at this time. He said, I think we could be a 2nd division club, you know, eventually. And I would like us to have a proper youth system. So I said to him, well, okay, that might cost you, and I know this doesn't sound a lot of money now, but it did in those days, that might cost you yourself 200 grand a year for 5 years. That which means we can run the club properly, run a very, very good academy, and we will then begin to produce our own players, which will lessen the amount of money that you have to put in. And he said, well, that's all right. He said, the interest on my Swiss bank accounts will cover that. I thought, fucking hell, you'll do for me. And he was as good as his word. Tony Wood, great, best chairman I've ever worked for. And no sign about him. He lived in Rwanda. Rwanda. He worked in the city he was an East Ender, but he worked in the city in the coffee desks, and he decided to go out there and set up his own factories, and he managed all the coffee that came out of Africa.
Okay.
So a very wealthy guy, but we would never have thought that by looking at him. And he used to obviously spent most of his time out in Rwanda. And shortly after he bought the club, and he made me kind of he asked me to be the managing director as well. And one or two of the other directors who put no money in, to be fair, were sort of quoted in the paper saying things. And he said to me one day, he rang me and said, listen, he said, we've got a board meeting this week. He said, I want you to put the phone in the middle of the table. I said, why? He said, just do it, put it in the middle of the table. So, the phone in the middle of the table. We're all sat around the table with about 6 other directors. And the phone goes, hello, it's me, Tony, the chairman. Put it on loudspeaker. Put it on loudspeaker. And he said, and after he used his words, I said, listen, you fucking lot. It's my money. I put all this money in the club. Nobody at this football club is allowed to speak about the club publicly except Frank Clark. That'll do for me.
Absolutely.
And you should have seen the face of the rest of them. Then it was a case of, well, if you don't like it, fuck off.
Yes.
Because they were getting a free ride, you know, they didn't have any money in it.
That's which is fair dues.
And he was great like that. And then I became managing director. I was actually the managing director and came away from the team. I brought in Peter Eustace as team manager, and I was managing director. And I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed doing that, you know. And I thought, well, that's me, really. That's my hopes of being a top manager, you know. And I was okay with that. And then, of course, Cloughie left at Forest. I knew he'd gone. I wasn't thinking I was getting the job. And I got a call. He'd been gone a couple of weeks, 3 weeks. I got a call from the then chairman, Fred Richard. And I knew Fred. Fred was on the board when I was a player. And I knew Fred. He was one of the lads. And he said, Frank, how are you? I said, hey, I'm good, Fred. What? He said, you know, Brian's gone. I said, yeah, I saw that in the papers, yeah. He says, listen, you couldn't help me out. I've been turned down by 5 people. Do you want the job?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, a vote of confidence.
But Cloughie always said he wanted you to follow.
Well, he did and he didn't. He did say it,
yes,
but he didn't really mean it.
Ah.
I'll tell you what, he said it, and this is typical of him. He said it because at the time I was struggling.
He wanted to give you a boost.
And he wanted to say to people, hey, this bloke knows what he's doing. Coming from him.
Yes.
That means something.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
He didn't want me to, he thought I was much too nice to be a manager. Or soft, or whatever you want to call it. And he might have been right there. But anyway, so that was it. So that was me getting the job. So then I the first board meeting, and Fred said, by the way, we expect you to get us straight back into the Premiership. don't want to hear any of this bullshit about consolidation and all that sort of crap. Oh, and the other thing is, you've got no money to spend. So I thought, all right,
Be a miracle worker.
I'm all right. But if you sell anybody, you can have the money that you bring in. Which, to be fair, they were as good as they were. So I mean, I inherited a really difficult situation. Not so much taken over from him. That was never a problem for me. It's interesting. You know, Cluffy. I mean, Cluffy was never above a bit of.
Oh,
How's your father, like, you know? Because again, I'm trying to look around and see if there's any old fellas in here. But back in the day, like, income tax was 98% at the highest rate, like, you know. So anybody who could fiddle a few quid off the tax man was looked upon as a hero, an idol, like, you know. It wasn't the same as it is now, like, you know. And Cluffy was.
most of it.
We actually went to Qatar to play a game. This is a long time. I was still playing. That's how long ago it was. Frank Wignall was the manager of the Qatar national team. Now in those days, there was not but sand out there, believe me. And there was one hotel that we stayed in. The only way you could get a drink, you had to take your key up to the top floor, look through a thing in the door, and show them your key, and they let you in to get a drink. You know? And Cluffy somehow got 20 gold bars. Pure gold bars, to bring back. He made some young lads bring one back for him. And I was talking to John Robertson about it the other day. I said, where did you put it? Because he was just a young lad then. I said, he's got it in my jacket. I talked to him. I mean, fucking hell, I think it was gold.
Robert?
Yeah. And the rest, I wouldn't take one, obviously, the experienced player wouldn't do it. The rest, he made the kit man, Liam O'Kane, put in one of the skips. So Liam, being Liam, he's quite crafty with him. He had three skips, with sets of gear in them. One was clean gear that had never been used. One was reasonable gear that hadn't been too much used. The other one was all the sweaty, shitty, horrible socks and there, like that. So Liam put all the bars of gold in that one under all the shitty, sweaty socks. So when he came through customs in Qatar, look at the first one. Nothing in there, like. And look at the second one, same again. Fucking looking at. By this time, Liam's absolutely shit. Open the third one. Oh, okay, off you go. And he used to do things like that. It was rumoured that he used to keep them in. He had a big settee in his office, and with a false bottom in it, that he used to keep them in there. So the first thing I did when I got the job, went in his office, but there was nothing in there.
There was no there. He cleaned it out.
But he was, yeah, I mean, he was always prone to that one.
Oh. You were manager at Forest, did a good job, things happened for you, and you end up at Man City, didn't you?
Do we have to talk about Man City?
Just very fleetingly, pal, just very fleetingly.
Well, it seemed like a good idea at the time. I left Forest just before Christmas, really. Things had turned quite sour for me at Forest. Stan had gone with a big miss.
Stan Collymore.
I signed Kevin Campbell. I got 8.5 million for Collymore. I hadn't paid 2.2 for him. When he was adamant he was going to go to Liverpool, we couldn't stop him. So I had this money, and I spent 2.5 million of it to buy Kevin Campbell. And I was a victim of my own hubris. You know, when you get too big for your boots. We just finished third in the Premier League. First season back in the Premier League. We finished third. I think I can walk on water, like, you know. And I've got all this money. And I love Kevin Campbell. I had him on loan at Leighton Orient, and I got to know him, and I watched his career. Smashing lad, good player. But I knew he had a back operation in Arsenal. But I thought he was over it. So I signed him, or I was going to sign him, and he came up for his medical. And the club doctor, who was a lovely fellow, a really good relationship with Lynn Jarrett. He's dead now, God rest his soul. He came up to me in a very quiet way and said, I wouldn't sign him for him. Why? What's the matter with him? Well, he's had the back operation and it's been a success. But I think it'll take another year before he really gets over it, you know. Clever bollocks. We'll sign him, it'll be alright. Sign him, he hardly played for a year, like, you know. And that was me being too clever. Like. So we were short of a strike. In fact, it came to this. We were going to go on tour at the start of the season. And I signed Kevin, I signed Chris Williams, still had Brian Roy, and I had Jason Lee. So I thought, oh, keep the rest of that money for a rainy day, like, you know. So we all set to go on this tour. Kevin's injured, Brian Roy's injured. Jason Lee comes to see me before we go, and he said, Gaffer, I can't go on this tour. I've just had it, my wife just had a baby. If I go and leave her, she'll commit suicide. What am I going to do here? Like, so I've got no strikers. So I then make a big mistake. That money that I was saving for a rainy day, I should have kept for a rainy day. The only time I've ever done it, I signed a player who I hadn't seen play. I've seen him on video, I've done a lot of homework on him. He was the first Italian to come from Serie A to play in the English Premier League.
Really?
Andrea Salenzi. He was in the Italian squad, the international squad. And he was playing for Torino. And I thought, well, 1.5 million. He was big, smashing lad. I met him. I went across to Turin to sign him. What an experience that was. The owner of Turin, we sat at the biggest desk I've ever seen in my life. A massive desk with about 6 mobile phones. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm all right here, like, you know. And they're all fucking gabbling away in Italian. Right? And I'm sensing something that they're talking about putting the fee up or taking the piss or something like that. So I stand up and walk out. And the agent comes running after me, and the big mistake I made was I went back. I should have kept on walking. I went back and straightened it all out, did the deal, and he never did it. He just couldn't cope. He couldn't cope with it. He couldn't cope with the climate. I mean, it gets pretty cold in Turin in the winter. He had a little baby, and the baby had colds all the time. His wife was always going back to Italy. And then he got injured, and when he came back, I wanted him to play in the reserves to get fit. He said, I do not play in the reserve. In Italy. I said, what can you do here?
Yes.
But he never did it.
Never did.
So I get that thrown in all the time. That's my big, and it was my fault, absolutely. I went, big disaster.
And City came along.
City, well, so then it turned sour. And then the club was that boring. The club was run, you won't believe how the club was run in those days. It was run by a committee.
This is Man City.
This is Forest.
This is Forest.
Sorry. They had 211 shareholders who each had 1 share that they paid a fiver for. And the board of directors had to come from this group of people. And they had an AGM every year in October, and they could vote somebody in and somebody out, which is why nobody ever put any money into the club line, you know. And over that last year and a half, the other thing that happened, which killed me off, was the Bosman ruling.
Oh, yeah.
Now, without getting too technical, the Bosman ruling meant that any player over 24 years of age could walk away when his contract expired for no transfer fee. But Forest, they had no security. They didn't own the ground. None of these directors had any money. So the only security they had was the value of the players. So they had an overdraft with Barclays of 6 million secured on the value
of the
players. As soon as Bosman came in,
the value went.
Bank managers know more, really. He's onto them every day. Because they can see Piercy, Cooper,
walking away.
Were just walking away. So they were under pressure all the time. So the chairman, who was changed by now, used to come in and say, "Oh, the bank's been on again, you've got to sell somebody." I said, "Well, who would you like me to sell? Would you like me to sell Pierce, or Cooper, or Wong, or Stone?" "Oh, no, you can't sell them. Can't sell them, rather. well, nobody wants to fucking buy our reserve. I'm like, what are you talking about? And this went on and on. It just got to me. And I think the directors lost a bit of faith in me. Anyway, they went out to try and find another way of financing the club. So there were some potential takeovers. You know what it's like with takeovers. You've seen it happen millions of times. Some fella who's got no money, once you get his fucking face in the papers, makes a big thing about it, it caused all kinds of mayhem at the club. That's what happened. And it got to November time, and I said to the chairman, the new chairman, I said, listen, either back me or sack me. I can't carry on like this. And I'd nearly chinned a player at half time away to Liverpool, which is not me. I've never done that in my life. You know, I've never been a fighter. And I thought, it's time to get out of this. Because I was always able, up until then, to leave it at the front door when I went home. But round about that time, I couldn't sleep. It was keeping me awake, so I resigned. And I resigned, and I was going to have a bit of time off here. And after about a month, Man City came in, offered me as much money again and a half again as I was already on at Forest. They were in the championship then to manage them, and I took it, and I shouldn't have got. I didn't realise how badly bruised I was by the experience at Forest, because Cluffy might have been right, like I might have been too soft. And Man City was a nightmare experience. I should have known. My first day on the job, when Francis Lee was the chairman as well. You know, you think, oh, chairman with a football background, that's fantastic. Wow. You give me all this bullshit about the club being united, all the directors are behind me. You know. I said, listen, Francis, if you're going to sack anybody, if you want anybody out of the club, I want it done before I get there. Because I ain't sacking anybody. I never worked that way. I inherited a group of coaches, and if they want to stay, I'll keep them on, and we'll see how it goes. And I might do it. I might sack them later, but I wouldn't go in and just sack them. So I ain't going to do that, man. Yeah, no, that'll be all done. Right, so I go up and I stay overnight in a hotel, and the vice chairman comes to pick me up, to take me to the training ground, first day, meet the players. So we go up the training ground, it's a massive car park. It's actually bloody, we cancelled all the training ground. Francis told me it was great, it's crap. It's got a massive car park, and all the buildings are at one end. This vice chairman takes me in the car, right at the other end. Oh, the other end of the car. I'm sitting there thinking, that's strange. I said, David, why are we here? Oh, he said, well, Phil Neal, who's been acting manager, Phil Neal's just clearing his stuff up and saying he's goodbye. Right down there, like, you know.
Your first day?
That sums it up. My first day and my last day. My last day, I've got a flat up there, and I've been to Sunderland to watch a game the night before. I'm up and I'm getting ready, and I'm just going in the train, and I've got Manchester radio on. Comes on the radio. We believe that Joe Royle is getting the job at Manchester City today. Another thing. Not one thing.
What an incredible way to hear.
We had a board meeting, and Francis has told me they're all united behind them, which is probably, because they are now. And a fella called John, JD Sports, you know that big.
Oh yeah.
John and David, they're the two owners.
Yeah.
And they were big. They had 20% shareholding. Francis had 20%. Somebody else had 20%.
David Whelan.
The golf man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Recipe for disaster. We all hated each other. So John, I can't remember his surname. It doesn't matter. John is going to join the board. So we're on the board meeting. It comes to any other business, and this John says, "Yeah, I've got something to say. Dennis Stewart is coming to work for the club." Yeah. And I'm looking at Francis.
Put my head down.
I'm looking at his shoes. I'm looking at the vice chairman. He's looking at his shoes. No, we're looking at it. Okay. So I said to John, "All right, okay. What's Dennis coming to the club for?" Well, certain things been going on that David and I are not too happy about, and Dennis is coming in to look after our interests. I said, whoa, hold it there. I thought, when we're sitting around this table, there's only one interest for all of us. And that's the benefit of Manchester City Football Club. Well, we think there's been a bit skullduggery with transfers. Now, they're not going to go on me because I haven't done one by now. But he's actually having a go at Francis. Because Francis
who's the chairman?
Who's the chairman? Francis has been in charge of transfers for 2 years. I'm fucking looking around. I mean, nobody looked at me. You know what I'm saying? No chance here. To be fair to them, I wasn't very good either. You know, I'm not putting all the blame on them, but it didn't help. Didn't help.
Right, before we finish, let's open it up. Anybody on Newcastle United or anything wants to ask Frank a question, stick your hand up in the air and we'll go. And if not, we'll go. But I'm sick of asking all the questions anyways. Anybody want to? Yes, sir, a gentleman there.
Frank, taking money out of the equation, would you rather play in this era or the era that you played in?
Fair question.
Good question. Well, it's difficult. Listen, all I can say is I had the most wonderful time and career that I could have wished for, really. My father, who sadly passed away before I even played in Newcastle first team, would have been so proud. 450 games at Newcastle, won a few things, then carrying on at Forest, and I loved the lifestyle of being a professional footballer. Didn't like the game itself. When people say to me, go out and enjoy it, I just say, it's too important, we've got to win. I'm a professional athlete. I'm paid to win, not to go and enjoy myself.
I was going to say that's an incredible thing to me, Frank, and I know that's true because you've said it way back in the past, privately, to me and that. But a lot of people would be surprised at that. To be a good professional, it's almost the hour and a half. Did you enjoy it after the game?
Absolutely.
But not
that's what I'm
during
saying.
it.
Every other thing else. You didn't enjoy the loss, obviously.
No.
I would enough to, and every other thing about the game, the training, the camaraderie, the travelling, everything else, I loved.
And if you won, you loved it afterwards.
I loved getting up every morning and going into training. Even more so at Forest, where it was an absolute dream. You just by the side. I mean, we had a spell of 42 games where we never lost. 42 games. I wasn't playing I wasn't playing that many of them, but I was involved with the squad. It was lovely, I think.
Unbelievable.
You'd forgotten what it felt like. So I loved that bit. Today, I'm not so sure, I certainly wouldn't like to be. I wouldn't swap the time I had then when I was single to what it would be like now if I was single. With these bloody mobile phones and things like that.
Well, no,
and Grace Club and the Dolce Vita and listen, I had a table at the Dolce Vita. I can't imagine that.
I can. I was on the next table.
I had a table at the Dolce Vita, and I'm sat in it one day, and Tommy Cooper's on. It must have been great. You wouldn't believe the number of people who came to the Dolce Vita. Tommy Cooper.
Oh, huge stuff.
I'm sort of half turning. I've got my foot half on the stage, like, and halfway through his act, I had the bloody. Hey, are you in show business? Sure. No, that's good. Get your foot off my stage.
But there were good days.
Oh, loved it. I absolutely loved it.
There were good days.
I'm not so sure now. You can't walk, can you? I mean, listen, the money's fantastic for the life, and good luck to them. I mean, I've got no problem with that, really. But they have to live a closet kind of life.
Social media, etc.
Everything has to be organised. They can't. Like me and Willie going to a Stringfellow that Saturday night. That just couldn't happen now. It's a real goldfish bowl, and I'm not sure I would have enjoyed that. The money would be nice.
You had the best years. Anybody else want to have a quick word? Yes, gentlemen, here, sir.
Basically, you're Eddie Howe, right? you're Eddie Howe,
Yeah.
next season and move Newcastle.
I wish I was.
Would you have Matty Target, Dan Byrne, or someone else at left back?
Ooh. Consider
Well,
your
listen,
left back. That's
Been
a
listening
good
to our
question, that.
conversation.
I wasn't listening.
Listen, we've been talking about that at half time there. And I wouldn't dare to tell Eddie how to do his job. I think Eddie is a top man. I was delighted when he got the job. He's not whiter than white. I once sat on a disciplinary panel where him and his assistant were found guilty of abusing a referee. I won't tell you that, but he is a great bloke, great coach, and he must think that Dan Byrne is a better bet for his team at left back than Target.
I fully agree with that.
Huh?
To move to the next level, would you keep Dan Byrne?
Well, that'll be interesting. Yeah, that when you know, I mean, yeah. If you had to play against Mbappe, and mine, who would want to play against Mbappe? Somebody said to me the other day, how would you stop him? I said, I would tie his laces together. he's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, listen, I know what you mean. I get quite upset in a way from the left back union that the centre back's playing there. And I like Target. I think he's a good, solid player. Dan Byrne gives him another dimension, obviously, in the air. When, you know, teams aren't accustomed to dealing with 6'6" left backs. And I've not seen all the games. I've not seen, but he hasn't really seemed to have been embarrassed by anyone.
He's never let it down. He hasn't.
I just think Target is a proper left back. You know, I was really pleased when they signed him.
I mean,
Eddie knows better than me.
it's a terrific question because
Okay.
it's worked for us. Obviously, it's worked for us because we're third top at the moment. I mean, in no way is he a natural left back, Byrne. You know, it's like playing big Jack Thornton there. You know, 6'6".
Oh no, not that much. Sure.
Oh, 6'6", nobody needs on the top of Gray's Monument. He is Gray's Monument. And he's done brilliant because he's got a heart the size of a frying pan. He does terrific job for us. Love him to death. Two things I would say. If I was Target, I'd be panicking. Because I think if a left back, if I'm an out and out left back and a left-sided centre half who's 6'8" gets my position, where am I going? The question, which was a very shrewd question, was not what happens now, because Target's there and Byrne's doing terrific. And when Trippier goes, we're shuttling to a 3, and it's great.
Yeah,
But we will not get away in the Champions League with Dan Byrne at left back. Wingers will take him out. There's good world-class wingers.
Not
They'll
many
take
of them
him out.
about, you know.
In the Champions League, there's more than there is in the
Well,
bottom of the
yeah.
Premier League. Mbappe, who plays on the other side, would have a field day. And I always remember, and I don't want to go against someone because I love him to death. He's a jolly lad. He cares about the club like there's no tomorrow. He will never let this club down. He'll do his best. He lacks pace. He's put out there, which is out of his comfort zone, being in a 3. He's out there exposed. And when we went down to Manchester United, Anthony, who played for them, had him on toast because of his pace. Never bothered testing him, killing him, going past him. For which I was eternally grateful. No doubt Dan was even more grateful.
Dan, you probably had a word in his ear.
Yeah, if you come past me, I'll kill you.
Like,
But Anthony should have said, you've got to catch us first.
before any more questions, you haven't asked me the question I asked you to ask me
Okay, I'll ask you, what is it?
about my goal, Forest.
Oh yes, I was trying to forget about that.
Just reminded
Wait a minute, yes, that's right. I was so busy trying not to mention your second goal for Newcastle because it didn't matter.
No.
But no, you scored a goal
A league-
for
league
Nottingham
goal.
Forest.
A
A
league
league goal
A league
for
goal.
Nottingham Forest. Would you like to regale us with it?
Yeah,
How did that happen?
I'll do it quickly.
No, take
Yes,
your time
it
because
was-
you took your time that day.
This, the season we won the championship. We'd already won the league on the Saturday, and we had to play Ipswich on the Monday night away. So we won the league on the Saturday. So you can imagine there was a bit of celebrating going on leading up to the game on Monday. Ipswich were playing in the FA Cup the following week, cup final, so they weren't too bothered either. And on the night, I'm sub. Now, in those days, there was only one sub. Now, you might think, why did I put you sub? You know, play left back. But nevertheless, I was a sub. And the first half was absolute rubbish. Honestly, it was a real crap game. So we come in half time. Cluffy goes absolutely berserk. He gets lashed into them, you know. And Peter Wade, lovely lad, Peter, not the brightest shilling in the box, reacts, doesn't he, to Cluffy, and has a pop back. Oh, Cluffy said, you fuck off and get in the bath. Points at me, get warmed up. I'm getting warmed up, I know. Well, it's like in the dressing room, trying to get warmed up, I'm looking around and I'm thinking, what's he going to do? What's he going to do? Ian Boyer was in the team. I said he'd probably play Ian Boyer at left back. Oh no, he'd play Ian Boyer at centre forward and play me at left back.
Left back.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm warming up, man, and the bell goes. Still haven't said anything. Not open. Boss, where do you want me to play? He said, fucking go and play up front. You can't do any worse than him in the bath. Lloydie starts laughing. Lloydie bursts out laughing. So out we go. And the game kicks off. And remember a centre back for Ipswich called Alan Hunter?
Good player.
Big Alan. Big 6'4". Well, I knew Alan because he was a cousin of Willie McFall from Ireland, and I knew him quite well. Like. Well, the first chance I got, I fucking side looked at him. I said, Alan, do you want to play in that cup final next week? Of course, yeah, why? I said, well, listen, if you fucking keep away from me, I'll keep away from you.
I'm not injured.
So just made sure he wasn't going to kick me. So anyway, we get a corner. And I'm in this, well, I'm in the penalty area, I don't know where to stand. But it's for us, we don't have, it's for us, we never had any,
defending the post.
we never had any set plays, you know, never had any set positions where people had to go into. It was all off the cuff like. And I've never been in there before when we've had a corner. I literally don't know where to stand. So I'm standing somewhere in the 6-yard box trying not to look embarrassed. And Robbo takes his corner, fucking drops right in my feet, 3 yards, 4 yards down. Poof! Into the net. Okay, now the team are up. Cluffy and Taylor off the bench, running up and down the touchline. Bobby Robson, the Ipswich man, can't believe it.
Bobby was there, man.
And we end up winning the game 2-0.
And that show you in the record books as the league scorer.
At the end of the game, Taylor goes to see he says, can I have the ball for Frank? He said, it's his first goal in league football. Boy said, nah, I can't believe it. Like, he's played for fucking 20 years. He's got it eventually.
So you, a non-goal scorer, scored a goal in Newcastle, maybe Stu, and a goal, and you've got a shirt out ball for Walker.
Ball every time,
Supermax scored 30 a season and he's got fuck all. Hey, that's showbiz, isn't it? That's showbiz. Just be unique, that's the answer. Ladies and gentlemen, it's always my pleasure, a dear friend of mine, an absolutely outstanding player in our history. You don't play over 400 games for Newcastle United if you're not exceptional. And to go on and do what he did in Forest as a player, love him to death for that. Put your hands together, show a jolly welcome back for Frank Clark, ladies and gentlemen. Frank Clark. Thank you.